I'm going to pick Mongols. And that's exactly what we got for you guys today.
Oh my god.
Welcome to set number 2, day number 4 of N4C. Spawning in over on the right-hand side of the map, playing in the color blue, we've got TheViper.
I love the way you say TheViper.
I probably could have given him a little bit more of a if you really want, but
don't hold back, Drongo.
We'll save it for the next game. We'll save it for the next game. And on the other side of the map, playing as the red, also playing the Mongols, we've got Leenock, the South Korean, known for his incredible micro. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but when he gets down on that keyboard cam and he's just tapping away. Maybe we could even go have a look at one of his perspectives right now, potentially, and get an idea of how fast he's going.
And he's got one of those weird keyboards as well, where what you said isn't just a random made-up onomatopoeia. It actually makes that sound. He goes on the keyboard and it's like, I'm like, that's a weird feature for a keyboard to have, but they'll try anything these days.
You've got to pay extra for it, but
it's worth it.
It is. It definitely is.
Very motivating. So far, a rather troubling statistic. TheViper hasn't. Well, he hasn't done that well in general in this tournament, but mirror matchups in particular have been a bit of a sticking point for him.
He's not a fan of mirror matchups. We spoke with him yesterday. He said he wants to do his best to dodge all mirror matchups. And unfortunately, game 1, he has done just the opposite. So perhaps thinking that Leenock might have been looking for that Holy Roman Empire, Leenock probably thinking the same from Viper, and both of them going for the Mongols in this situation. And now we find ourselves in a Mongol mirror.
Okay, so how do you get ahead when you both have the exact same conditions? It's always a bit of it's a tough psychological challenge, because in theory, if you can make the same thing and have the same economy, then the defender wins. So how do you proactively get ahead?
Yeah, I think it comes down to RNG. You know, you can't have a better sieve than your enemy, so you've got to have a better map spawn, right?
Just have a better map spawn.
That's it.
Okay.
No, but in all seriousness, I think it's about being reactive, isn't it? It's about knowing...
First blood.
Yeah, first blood going over to Viper. He picks up the sheep. Unfortunately, going to be losing its life here. Now, I guess one thing to note is Viper hasn't gone for a scout.
Yes.
So you can see that all the line of sight he's got on the map, it's just been covered by his calm. But take a look at this. We've got 2 pastures already coming out for Viper, and now dropping down a Gur. Despite being quite close to that gold, he says, well, we're going to need one anyway, so we might as well make one.
Yeah, I guess it could be... It could be kind of a deception that you think you're close enough to the gold not to need that Gur, and then you end up like long distance mining, and it just gets you further and further behind because you wanted to save the money. You see an almost good spawn of your TC, and you pretend that it actually is. So I think this makes sense, and he budgeted for that Gur, obviously. The double pasture opening certainly is interesting.
Yeah.
Viper, by skipping that second scout, has gotten more resource scaling than his opponent in Leenock, in theory. But as we say that, how does that happen? How does he have 14 villagers against Leenock's 15?
Highly likely that he's moved the town center just a little bit further than Leenock has. If we go take a look over at Leenock's base right now, you can see that he's got an absolutely beautiful spot here, but he might have spawned just a little bit closer.
Is it? It's not flipped, is it? Can we do a all select everything that someone owns command? Like right now we're looking at
16 villages for Leenock.
Yeah, 15 villages now, and then for Viper
15. He does actually have a scout. There was a scout that was just selected. I don't know where that scout's come from, how it's gotten out, but there we go.
I think maybe can we do a check if the overlay is wrong way around? Just kind of I know probably we should have a different communication method for this, but just to check, because it doesn't make sense that Viper skipping a scout would then also have 2 fewer villagers.
Yes.
But let's move on with the rest. The pasture opening. It's not necessarily meta, is it?
No, it definitely isn't. It's something that we've typically been seeing players going for those outposts in the early game, but now we've started to see, as earlier in the day we witnessed the Mongols' win rate continuing to move down. We see it's the lowest in the tournament currently, and players are learning how to react to those outpost openings, those early rushes that we're seeing, and as a result, they are trending towards this boomier style, this more investive style, and we can see that both players opting towards going for the pastures nice and early. So it's great to see, because typically there's not a lot that you can really gain as the Mongols by going up to the second age. You've already got access to the stable if you want to have early aggression on the cavalry front. You don't need to be up that early, so why not invest in these early pastures?
And of course, it is Mongol mirror. Outpost rushing a Mongol player is not as good. They can go nuclear and just move that town center.
Yeah.
And they've got the same tools and the same production as you. But I think we should probably be heading in this direction in general, even against other civilizations. Yeah. Mongols to play a little bit more economical, since their early attacks are being snuffed out so easily by their counterparts.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing, because we've continued to see balance, and Mongols in particular, be adjusted. And the devs have been very, it's difficult to say exactly, but they've been very restrictive in how they actually balance the Mongols. There were people even like myself that were saying, you need to calm down hard on these Mongol players. Remove 100 wood, remove 200 wood, nerf the Uvu, move it to H2, all this kind of stuff. But yet still, we see that the meta begins to slowly shift. And even now, it's starting to look like Mongols might actually be a weaker civ, despite being picked by both players here.
Yeah, maybe middling, and very much they were both, I think what you said at the start is so true, they were both trying to counter a Holy Roman Empire pick, and this is one of the best matchups in general for any civ. To be Mongol against Holy Roman Empire has been one of the biggest win rate disparities, like 66% on the ladder on quick match. So it's definitely a good matchup to aim for, but they got this Mongol mirror instead. And we do see that the overlay flipped now, so Viper does indeed have 1.5 more villagers than Leenock, and that gives him about 35 to 40 resources per minute extra. We're at minute 6, so he already has more than 100 extra resources by virtue of that skip. And with the pastures, he has more than enough sheep anyway. And now the question is it going to be fast castle, or is anyone going to do spear, horseman, or archer pressure against each other?
Yeah, we start to see Leenock over on the left-hand side of the map. He's actually dropped down a barracks quite early. This the barracks is also going to be accompanied by an archery range now as well, so potentially looking to play in Feudal Age a bit, but you can see from Viper's resources that he's stacking up. He's very intent on getting up to that Castle Age, and it definitely looks like a good position for him, because I suspect that Leenock's going to be taking a lot of time to get over towards Viper's base with any kind of units.
Yeah, it's kind of a long-distance map, and the layout around Viper's base, you see that gray area on the minimap. That is a further movement impeding thing. I think we just had to cancel an archery range and it went into blacksmith. Leenock is making these preparatory buildings of unit production and otherwise now, but he's not producing out of it. So he had a lumber surplus and put it towards some unit production, just in case. Viper is more laser focused now. And I think the reason that's interesting is because one of Viper's greatest strengths is his intuition for the game, his past history with Age of Empires 2 and his achievements there. And yeah, just his intuition and flexibility and adaptability. But his weakness so far in this tournament has been highlighted, especially in contrast to some of the other RTS players that came over. His weakness has been build orders. What does a man do when he's down 0-3 in a tournament and he is at risk of going 0-5 or 0-4 on day 4 and day 5? He prepares build orders. And it looks like he has a much clearer idea of what he wants to do. He's going for that fast castle, pops it down at 8:30. And if this is anything to measure by, that's very encouraging for Viper, because he needs cleaner build orders in addition to his good play.
It looks incredibly clean what we've got out of him so far. Interestingly, we don't see any defensive outposts at this point in time yet over on Leenock's side. He's actually opted for that. The one thing that is that I'm starting to see a little bit of difference is Leenock has got that wheelbarrow technology research. So it's going to be a little bit of a slower age up for him, but he does have that investment in the resources. And keep in mind that wheelbarrow, in addition to increasing your movement speed for all of your villages, which stacks up greatly with that YAM network, it's also going to be increasing the amount that every single resource is pulling in to the town center.
Yes, exactly. That's true, and it's been that wheelbarrow is nice, but I think in this case the faster castle could be good. It kind of depends on how he uses it. First of all, wheelbarrow gives those resources, but so does step readout. So I think in this case, if you're fast castling, it may be better to leave it out initially. And now Viper has a few options. He can either go for a flood of men-at-arms, and it looks like that's what he is doing, which is interesting because for most of the tournament, his favorite unit go-to has been crossbows. He's played the defensive role, made a bunch of crossbows, kind of spreads himself thin between many different resource accumulations. Now he is going to be the aggressor, gets that fast castle, goes for the men-at-arms, but does he also want to plan for the late game, or is he going all in? Where's the prayer tent to maybe get some relics? That would be an option, and he's very deliberately not going for it.
Yeah, he definitely seems quite intent on hitting some sort of timing here. We can see both players now researching improved siege engineering. They've got plenty of stone built up. Each of these players were climbing towards 900 stone with their fast castle, not spending any stone whatsoever on units, but now we see he's added in the first spearman. He's actually got a few men-at-arms in queue looking to research those veteran spears as well. So I suspect we're going to be seeing quite a strong infantry push out here, potentially some mangonels, and he's really going to be looking to apply that pressure nice and early before his enemies even able to get out those units.
And what is that?
That's
is that a prayer tent? Okay.
That's a prayer tent. You spoke too soon, Grubby, it seems. He's getting that prayer tent out. One of the things I love about the Mongols and their prayer tent is they're able to move that prayer tent around.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday. Like, apparently it's a thing. I haven't really noticed it. Have you seen that a lot in your
All
cast?
the time, yeah, all the time. And you can actually see Leenock going for the same thing. And so essentially, you never need to make the double trips. It's just the single trip. You just walk out with the shaman. He picks up the relic, pops it in the prayer tent, and then you guys both move off to the next relic. It's wonderful.
Pretty cool Ubering the relics around. The downside being that when the prayer tent is unpacked, or let's say packed, you're not getting that gold generation apparently.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that.
So you've got some downtime, but it's more than made up for the fact that it is safer and quicker in terms of the deposit.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have it out like that. But now we see that shaman in queue for both players here. You can also see Leenock going for crossbows. So at this point in time, I definitely like Viper's position. The difficult thing when you're playing as the crossbow player is to be watching out for those mangonels. They're so unforgiving. Just one shot, if you look away for a split second, your whole army's dead. And Leenock, I mean, he's the kind of guy, he's not really going to look away. He's Korean. Yeah. He's looking everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, 450 APM player. He played an RTS where one single blow-up can just end the game. There's a bunch of explosive units in StarCraft. And, well, you would imagine that if he's playing on top of his game, which is certainly not a guarantee, that he's not going to look away from any mangonel fires. Viper. Both of them are trying to inch out into the map with outposts. Not kind of going all in with men-at-arms into the opponent's base, just setting up with Springalds and Mangonels initially. It's interesting to go with that Springald first.
Yeah, this is quite interesting. As soon as I saw that, I sort of... Yeah, that's a bit curious. Opening up with the Springald here, so hasn't actually spotted out any siege yet from his opponent yet, still has that Springald out. I think that's a smart move as well because it can't really be punished. There's no real way to punish this. As long as he keeps it under the YAM network, it's always going to be very fast. If we click on the Springald right now, we can hover over its movement speed and you can see how fast it's going. This bad boy, he's 1.101, and if it ever gets into a bad position, Viper's going to be able to pop up that maneuver arrow from the Khan and make sure it gets back to safety.
And now a Mangonel as well. Interesting order. Normally you would imagine the Men-at-Arms player to go Mangonel first into crossbows, but it is indeed a mix by Leenock, so just getting that Springald early, then the Mangonel. Viper got the first shot off with his Springald. He's actually taking down Leenock's Springald. He has more army too. This just straight up looks like a great fight for Viper.
Yeah, but really smart move here from Leenock. So Leenock with the outpost has actually got the Springald in placement on that outpost and manages to take out the Mangonel from Viper behind the scenes. So the Mangonel is essentially useless. 600 wasted resources there, but still at the same time on the front we've got Viper who looks to be doing relatively well, but keep in mind that Springald in placement on that outpost is just doing so much work here.
Yeah, it got a bunch of men-at-arms stabbing them in the back with that. Now it's going for the Springald. It can be repaired, and it is being repaired by Viper, so he's keeping that one alive. Viper also has the textiles upgrade, which meant that that villager that was just target fired by Leenock actually survived. He managed to slot that one in, and I'm not sure that Leenock did the same. So it's a nice little bit of extra resilience. In terms of the relics, one apiece so far.
Yeah, one apiece so far. Those players are going to be continuing to move. But if we take a look from Leenock's line of sight, what he's beginning to do is add outposts across the map. You can see up towards the north, that villager heading out actually spots the shaman. He's going to continue moving across the map, extending that YAM network out. So not only does he have line of sight, but he's got movement speed. If he needs to intercept a raid, or if he wants to go for a raid himself, he's going to be able to move around the map with insane mobility.
And now we get to this situation where both players kind of have an entrenched position. No one wants to invest in a ram to take down each other's towers because it's not very good at fighting. So Springalds and Mangonels, Mangonels at least can take down outposts a bit slowly, but the Springald and placement has the same range, so you would need to repair it. It would be slow. So there's a fairly big defender's advantage now, and I feel like it's kind of a gridlock in the middle of the map now, as they both have some map control. And we start to think about the game in terms of the battle tactics as moving to the front, moving the frontier to the sidelines, kind of a proxy war on the top and the bottom of the map. In the meantime, though, having said that, Leenock saw fit to add a second town center during all this. So if Viper is laboring under the assumption that a gridlock is fine, he's going to be misjudging that. Does he have any information about this?
Yeah, this is a huge investment coming in for Leenock, and we can see from his perspective that there's absolutely no units on his enemy's side of the map. Khan is out towards this northern position, but this is not something that you'd really expect going up against the Mongols, with the exception of a Mongol mirror. It's only really in the Mongol mirror that we see this second town center come out, because this gridlock does happen. So Viper's got a couple of options. Number one, as you mentioned earlier, was the Ram, but it's going to get taken out very effectively by Springald. So in this position, I feel like the best approach for Viper is to even potentially look towards a trebuchet. Now keep in mind, the Mongol trebuchets aren't as strong as other civilizations, but they still do effectively counter these outposts.
And they're cheaper, so that can work. But here's the real problem. Leenock is a very economical player. Most of the players here and casters know this about him. He's not going to go for a single game without econ upgrades. And more than that, he now has horticulture, broad axis, mining picks, wheelbarrow, and he's working on the second broad axis upgrade. Viper doesn't have that same systematic structure to his economy upgrade here. Yeah, that actually doesn't work. I don't know why the Khan is leaving. You can't steal a Khan.
It's a very hopeful Wallalol right there from Viper. So for anybody who's not familiar with the mechanics of that, the Khan won't actually be taken by the Wallalol. But, whoa, my lord, you see all those Springald shots coming in, trying their best to chase that down. Looks like Khan's going to be chasing after the Khan out there for Leenock. But even if it dies, it's still going to just be respawning in 2 minutes' time. I'm not too worried about that, Grubby. I don't think Leenock is either.
Yeah, it's a little bit of vision loss, but like Leenock is feeling extremely good right now. His economy is going to be so much better. And what Viper basically did, if you put it on paper, he made a siege army and then rested it. Siege army doesn't do anything for you while it's resting behind towers.
Yeah.
If you're doing an arms race, you need to make sure that it becomes effective very soon after. All that invested army does nothing. It's not like it costs upkeep, but you could have made a TC instead.
Yeah.
And now Leenock does lose his Khan, and well, we can see with our omniscience of the observer view that Viper is not going to have a chance to win anymore, most likely, if he doesn't attack in the next 1 or 2 minutes.
Yeah, this is important for him. He's really on a timer at this point. Viper actually looking to begin transitioning into Horseman here, so appreciating that his enemy might be looking to start stacking up that siege army, and then moves into Horseman. I think it's quite curious because we did see that raid over towards the east side of the map. So Leenock is further delaying this game, and that's exactly what he wants to do, bring that army back from Viper and try and force this game to last longer, because if it does, then it means he's going to be more likely to win. He's got the second town center, and you're 100% right. I can't see a way that Viper can actually win from this position without his own second town center, without a miracle raid coming in.
I'm not actually 100% white. I'm like 5% Indonesian.
Really?
No, but you're right. The double town center is a big problem here. Leenock actually did a great job slotting that in, and it's only now that Viper knows this. The step readout momentarily was idle, and that's a bit of a loss of income there for Leenock. The way to avoid it is to just put the readout on a 90% angle on the gold, not the one that villagers are coming from, because the walking villagers are blocking out that placement. But Leenock did notice. There's a little bit of a defense there by Viper on the northern flank, as Leenock was trying to distract and slow down. And let's be honest, second TC costs 900 wood. And he's got 5 villagers more than Viper. But for most of the game, Viper had 2 more. So the total amount of resources gained is actually not disadvantageous for Viper yet. And more than that, we look at the army count. 50% more army for Viper. He's still actually in a fine position. And I guess it is not as of a dark omen for him that Leenock has so much more economy, so long as he makes a move relatively early.
That's going to be the big thing. He can't delay this game. And at the same time, we've seen Viper move in towards that raid on Leenock's base. We don't know exactly what he saw, but I'm sure he can suspect that something is up. Leenock not showing a lot of aggression here. Did go for a little bit of a raid, but it definitely seemed like more of a distraction rather than an actual offensive. But now towards the center of the map, we see those traction trebuchets beginning to set up and looking to put out a bit of damage, but the Springald emplacements on those outposts just doing absolute work.
He did kill that one Springlet emplacement, right?
Yes.
It looks like Viper kind of has a clear way into Leenock's base already. He's using Horseman first to do a little bit of villager harass. Nice job equalizing some of that villager count. Killed about 3 or so. Meanwhile, Leenock is going for a big attack around the north side. He's kind of doing a base trade.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty smart move from Leenock. Ideally, what he wants to do is just draw Viper's army back in this position. We can see Leenock now pushing back the forces that were raiding him. But Viper's got this outpost up. He knows that, so he's going to be able to come in underneath the line of sight. Viper should spot this, and then Viper's going to move. But have a look at the beautiful wood line that is up in this position. So even in the event that Viper moves back to try and take this out, Leenock's very safe, very protected by those wood lines in the center of the map.
Yeah, they're going to kind of block movement back for Viper. At this point, both have to make a very exciting decision. Defend or attack and base trade. And it looks like both will be going on the offensive.
Yeah, Viper definitely not too intent on returning back to his base. We can see there's plenty of units that he's got out here. Springalds, only a single Mangonel and just a one traction trebuchet. But I definitely suspect Viper is probably just going to be committing here to the base trade. There's a lot of units here for him, and I suspect that it's going to be very easy for him to overwhelm the units that remain. And the Mangonel actually coming out, getting a pretty nice shot there onto the men-at-arms. Springalds got to be careful unfolding on the Springalds of Leenock, and now Leenock trying to hold that defensive position. His crossbows out, losing 2 Springalds. All the Mangonels have gone down for the Viper. It's just only the Springalds that remain, so he's going to be able to build more Mangonels, but unfortunately, he doesn't have a lot here to take out the enemy units. And now back towards the base of Viper. If we can just take a quick look at that base trade that's coming in, we see that Leenock is continuing to move in, and there's not a lot of units back home here for Viper. So a little bit of a difficult position, I think.
Yeah, I think Leenock is doing a great job here of doing the defense. Crossbow still fighting men-at-arms. He's got more resilience because of that second TC, so any villager skills can be more easily replaced. Springalds are not the anti-army siege weaponry that they once were. It's the Mangonels really that help you in that situation. Viper's food economy has been dumpstered. All the villagers are hiding and are unable to harvest from the sheep. The villagers now are killing Springalds as well.
Viper falling apart right now. We can see the military force really starting to dwindle for him. He's down to 36 population compared to 60 military population for Leenock, so it's not looking pretty for him. This base trade didn't work out because there was just so many units back home for Leenock. I didn't expect to see that force.
Leenock made an army, and he knew that he was going to be base trading. He knew he was going to be attacked, and he prepared accordingly, making many crossbows. Viper had 0 units at home. He was attacking, and while he did know about the army coming up, for some reason he was not able to procure enough units to also kind of do that defense at home.
This whole time, Leenock has also been on 2 town centers.
Yep.
Delays the game even further, securing his victory condition number 1, and we see a little bit of an esports head shake coming in from Viper just there.
No.
It's not looking pretty for him now. He does have those 3 relics inside the prayer tent, but he's going to need a lot more religion to save him.
He's going to need food. He's getting hungry. 12 food, 0 per minute coming in. Does have 2,500 gold, but Viper doesn't have... He's not marketplace trading. He's got gold, and he actually... You know, this has been brought up, like, hey, Viper, you always have a lot of gold. And he's like, yeah, I'm not trying to be, but, you know, sometimes... This is one of those moments. He should be stepping on the he should be stepping down on the metal and making sure that he's buying food and creating some units, but he's not. The stress of the situation, Leenock's pressure, Leenock's excellent defense and economy-oriented approach here has completely checkmated Viper.
It really looks like he's in a position that's not winnable right now. We can see the force continuing to build up for Leenock. That same force that was at home. Viper manages to clean up what was remaining in his base, but at the same time, look at the huge mass that's out here for Leenock.
Yeah. Leenock is taking back Sacred Site. Throughout all this, Viper had a little bit more gold coming in because of the 3 relics and the 2 Sacred Sites that he had. But Leenock has 11 postures against 3 now. Viper had 6, but 3 were actually destroyed. So Leenock targeted those down. There's still plenty of sheep, and it's not really a problem for Viper. But overall, Leenock has taken an amazing sense of control over this game with his crossbow, spearman, men-at-arms army. It's almost full cavalry. There's spearmen here. Mangonels are here. He's going to get some 2 shots off on the horsemen. That's a pretty nice shot, bringing many of them to less than half-life.
Yeah, he's not doing too bad. We see those Mangonel shots unfolding out towards the right-hand side of your screen. The Lancers doing a decent job of getting in on the front line, actually pushing back these units quite well. Horsemen also taking out the Mangonels that were up towards the top of your screen, and now going to be coming in around the back, looking for a bit bit of a flank on these units, and you can see how low the health is on each of these crossbows, barely staying alive, each one of them. One mangonel shot away from death, and Viper going to be looking to clean up this army, doing a pretty decent job right now, Grubby.
A very unexpected, admittedly, great job there from Viper. He did a lot better in the fight than expected. He was down about 50 population, now only 30. So he had a really good initial fight. But as it gets down to the nitty-gritty, and defensive micro by Leenock improves as he stutter steps and kites away with his crossbows, it seems like he will be able to clean up the rest of what Viper has.
It's going to be a bit of a struggle. You can see that at the moment, Leenock is still up about 30 villagers compared to Viper. And it means that behind this, if we take a look at Leenock's wood line, he's looking like he might need a gur or two in that wood line. Now, I don't know if you saw that, but that is,
yeah.
Look, if you ever want to have a screenshot for the Wikipedia article of long distance mining, that is it. That is a very long distance chop right there. But,
yeah, I mean, you know, he's focusing on the army, but definitely, that's actually what I love about Age of Empires 4 the most. The economy management is so intricate. There's so much you can always improve in, and even the best players now or in 2 years from now are going to have mistakes like that slip in. It's so intense. Anyone that's played AoE 4 knows how intense it can get. War cries sounding as your army clashes. You're thinking about unit compositions, limited information, and 4 resources with many positions of resources to manage.
Yeah, and so now Viper going to be looking to push out. Obviously, military seems to be a little bit even at this point in time, but that economy is going to be the main difference. Viper actually coming around, looking to pick up a couple of high-value targets here, taking out 1,000 resources of siege, so not too bad. A nice little pick-up for him.
Yeah, really nicely done. It would be incredible if he gets into a better and better position. There we go. He made an extra gur, and he split them off as well. That's lovely. Villager kills here by Viper. It depends if Leenock is going to notice it. There was a couple of spears there, but yeah, he did actually put them. Wait, no. Yeah, he is using them to fight.
Okay, all right. So he manages to notice it. We see those mangonel shots doing a fair bit of work, but at the same time behind this, Viper looking to even up the villager count. We can see it's about 16 villagers difference between the two players now, so halving that villager lead that Leenock did have. And now Viper continuing to defend on the front. See a lot of units down here taking shots from those mangonels. Looks like the Springalds going to be able to defend for this point in time, but the 3 mangonels coming out from Leenock are doing so much work.
Suddenly it's not unimaginable anymore for Viper to win. He did kill many villagers, more than 10, and it is not being noticed. The spearmen are leaning on their spears there as they were not fighting. You can still see villagers dying. All the siege has been cleaned up. Viper did an amazing job. He's still killing villagers.
Oh my lord. He could potentially do this. I mean, we talked about him needing a little bit more than prayer, and it seems like he's found a great raid to assist him in this situation. Now adding in even more horsemen, he's got plenty of military production. He's cleaned up so many villages down here, Grubby. 71 villages for the Viper, 73 villages now for Leenock.
That's insane. All he needs now is a good fight. He's got many outposts. He's unwilling to roll over and give up. At first, I mean, I don't know how many GGs I saw in Twitch chat during this. They thought this game was over, and certainly we were already getting our pen to write his epitaph. But we look at the situation. Viper equalized villager count, almost. He still has more relics. Nobody has sacred site control. He's entrenching his position with these outposts at his front step. And suddenly, there's a small hope again for him. Whereas Leenock, he made an uncharacteristic mistake of losing many villagers. He needs to stabilize and get this map on the record finally.
And keep in mind, for those of you guys in Twitch chat that are just coming in, this is incredibly important that Viper wins this series. If he loses this series, he is almost 100% out of the tournament. In fact, I probably would say 100%, but you know, I've learned not to. I'll go with 99%.
Yeah.
So it's incredibly important that he wins. By the same token, Leenock, he's only 1-2 at the moment. He'd love to be able to get another victory under his belt, cement that chance of going through to the next round or passing through the group stage. But now looks like Leenock is going to be pushing through. He's got quite a bit of a military advantage here, double the military of Viper, so he's really going to need to try and put on a show for us. But unfortunately, it looks like those mangonels just keep doing so much work, and he pushes in underneath these Springalds outposts and seems to just completely destroy them.
That is so many spears and men at arms. Cavalry are coming from the back though. Where did you come from? Nice job there, killing that mangonel. There's been good Springald target fire by Viper as well, taking down those siege. For some reason, there's always more cavalry coming from the west. The ones
Has he got a stable over there?
I
What's
think so.
going on?
Something like that. Maybe he actually does.
Potentially, but now we see those meta arms going to be coming back towards that Mangonel. Goes down almost instantly, evaporates. The health on those things very, very small. But now it looks like Leenock is in a pretty decent position. 69 military population for him.
Nice.
Very nice. And Viper on the other side of things, only 14. He's going to be trying his best to defend. He's got the defender's advantage, but it's not looking pretty.
Step readout has run out, and while Viper did use his marketplace more, he needed it more. And he has exhausted the limit of its capacity, whereas Leenock is still luxuriously sitting on 3,000 gold. A small point of critique against his marketplace usage, but he didn't need it. Leenock takes the first victory here in the Mongol Mirror on Hill and Dale, and will be 1-0 against the Viper.
The Viper indeed, yeah. A really tough game there for Viper. Well played by Leenock. I think that there was a bit of metagaming going on, and that's what resulted in the Mongol Mirror on that map. As I mentioned earlier, you know, Holy Roman Empire, a great civilization on that map, similar to the Delhi, but obviously Delhi banned out by both players, leaves only really one decision, so it was very easy for them to both pick Mongols. Unfortunate for Viper. He doesn't like to play the mirror matches, and it definitely seems like it didn't go his way, so he'll be looking at game 2.
The last 5 maps, Viper had 4 mirror matchups.
Oh, gosh.
And there's 8 civs. 1 gets banned, so you have 7 options, then 6, then 5. The odds of that happening are fairly low. There is, of course, the maps with level 1, level 2, level 3 psychology of what people generally play there and then try to counter each other. But at this point, I would say it's better just to roll a die or draw a straw and randomize your next civ pick. You have a better likelihood of dodging
English,
counterplay.
China. Actually, China against Leenock, probably not a good idea. It's good chances that that'll come out. But the fact that he didn't pick HRE there means that he's still going to have it in his pool to go up against Leenock's China. For anybody unfamiliar with that matchup, very favored for the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah.
So if he can find a matchup for that, he'll be very happy. But we'll take a look and see whether we've got the drafts for the next game, or at least the map for the next game, because I'm excited to see where we're going to be going to, and it looks like it's going to be Highview coming out today. So Highview going to be the map to go, an open map here. Which civilization do you think it's going to be?
Well, Viper is one of the players that likes Rus the most. There is no Mongolian Heights, which is one of the maps where you might want to save it for. I'm just going to... I always think of this in levels. Level 1 psychology, what do people like? What is good on the map? And that's what I then expect. And that's what I expect from Viper.
So you expect we'll see a Rus out of Viper here?
That's level 1. Depends how much he mind games this.
Right.
Let's do the same for Leenock.
Because Leenock comes into this. I know that Leenock's a big fan of Abbasid, and on a map like this in particular, it could be quite good for him here. Keep in mind he's got Lipany in his back pocket as well. So he might be looking to save the Abbasid there. They're very strong on Lipany. So he could be looking towards that. Could be looking towards Chinese. He loves to get the Chinese out, and Highview could be a pretty good matchup for him into that Rus, taking the Chinese. So,
but I think the most likely for Leenock, without overthinking it, is English, Abbasid, or French. And is he happy with those into Rus? And with which one would he be the most happy?
French.
Okay. So I think it's going to be French for Leenock. He's in a comfortable position. He wants to play something strong. Viper's going to have to wonder. He should stop seeing the game only how he sees it, but also how other people see him, right? If you want to do the draft correctly. So by that reckoning, what would make the most sense here? Perhaps English or Abbasid or French for himself?
Yeah, I've got a feeling we're probably going to see an Abbasid out of this, out of Viper. We're seeing Abbasid continue to move up in the tournament. But by the same token, it could be English. Both players loving these two civilizations. But it looks like players have now entered into the game. It's hard. I'm not sure if you can spot, Grubby, what civilization
we've got there.
I can see that it looks like we've got a bit of an arid environment on the screen, on Viper's screen in particular. But we're about to jump into the game, so bear with us because, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 2 in the series between the Viper and Leenock. Spawning in on the north side of the map in the color blue, playing as the Abbasid dynasty. It is the one, the only, the Viper.
There we go.
And his opponent on the opposite side of the map in the color red, playing as the French, hailing from Korea. It is going to be Leenock.
Basically what we expected from them. Leenock, French, Viper, Abbasid. Finally, not a mirror for Viper. He needs to prove himself right here and to show that the mirror excuse is real. And when he gets a asymmetric Civ, he's going to own.
He needs to win this game. It's incredibly important.
Yeah.
Obviously, being 1-0 down, it's a terrible feeling, but at the same time, you can pull this one back. You can turn it back to a best of 3. Because if Leenock wins this game, he doesn't have that mirror match excuse, that we mentioned it. Because it's a very good one to fall back on. I love that.
Oh, yeah. Like,
Yes.
it's ironclad, I don't like mirrors. Okay. Cool, it works. So, Viper, he's in the blue. He's in the northeast. Singular scout as Abbasid. And I go back and forth on this. Your economy and your age up timings are so much better on one scout. You can age up like 10 to 15 seconds faster with just one scout. You do create more RNG for yourself. You could lack finding enough sheep. Sometimes you go single scout, you only get 7 out of 24 available sheep on the map, and you curse your luck. But you haven't managed your luck that much by going on only one scout.
Correct.
Instead, you get to feudal faster, you can make your second TC faster, get stone faster, and so on. And that's kind of the expectation here, most likely, for Viper to think of a fast second town center. Question being, will it be directly into second TC, or one of those delayed, nuanced ones that has a small attribution of defense into Leenock initially?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we could potentially see that classic, fresh foodstuffs wheelbarrow into one stable opening. Going up against the French, though, he's going to know that there is a school of cavalry coming out. It's highly likely that there are going to be, whether horsemen or knights coming out onto the field. So he's probably going to be a barracks that he looks to drop here. But that is definitely the question, whether he's going to be going for a fast second town center or whether it's going to be a little bit more delay. Because when it comes to win conditions, he must, with a capital M, must make that second town center. It's the only way he's going to win this matchup.
Yes, like imagining seeing Abbasid go feudal all-in off of a single TC, it's just too expensive. You can't afford it. You can't make horsemen and camels. Your units aren't special enough to finish the game under enemy town center. You could imagine Castle Age from Abbasid on singular TC, but really the way that the game has been figured out by now already is that you don't even get to Castle Age a lot faster on a singular town center. While you save 700 resources initially, it's not good enough to compensate for the loss of income that you could have had from the extra villagers.
Yeah, and the time that you buy yourself by going that one town center, it's largely offset by that walking distance that you've got across the map, because by the time you get over there, your enemy's already up to the next stage, already making out units.
Yeah, so that's the situation here. And so for Leenock, very much the burden and onus on him is to find out ways to harass with the depth of his multitask, aggression, micro, and awareness to keep Abbasid delayed enough. They will get that second TC, but how much can you delay their castle? How many feudal units can you force out from Abbasid Dynasty for you to get to castle as French yourself, get your guild hall set on stone, and then get enough stone for a second TC yourself and a keep as well?
Yeah, and now we actually see that Leenock does scout out that Viper is on stone. He's obviously going to be able to click on that stone mine. He's going to be able to see how far along Viper is. And we can actually see he's doing a great job of distracting those villagers as well, delaying this town center. Keep in mind, every single second that he's stabbing that scout, he's not gathering stone. So it really hurts Viper to be doing this. And ideally, you'd love to see his own scout come back. But now we actually see Leenock with a second scout moving out towards these villagers. He realizes how important it is to delay this second town center.
Yeah, and the funny part, the way that these scouts work, they even get little stunts on villagers. Animation-wise, graphically, it's very pleasing to see that the villagers get like knockbacked by a scout hit. You can see them physically role-playing as they take pain from these scouts. But it actually constitutes a small stopping in mining, as we now see is it a first-person vision here? Is this no? This is not first-person vision.
Yeah, I'm not too sure exactly what we're having a look at here. It looks like we've got the observers just without the overlay. Don't worry, guys. We'll get that overlay back very shortly.
We want them to appreciate the overlay. How do you like it if we take it away? You don't like it, right? Better appreciate this.
Yeah,
or we'll take it away.
I better see lots of appreciation in the chat for overlay guy and all the hard work he's done.
Yeah.
But whilst we have that heart rate over on the right-hand side for Leenock, you can see he's up at 130. We can see Viper's hands moving, and look at that. He's a cool, calm, collected 81 at the moment. And he's not doing too bad.
We see his villager attribution, 9 on food, 9 on wood, 3 or 4 on stone. He's got a barracks. He's going to make a few spears. His outpost doesn't have arrow emplacements yet, and he's not in a rush of getting it right now. He's putting his spear in position for the first night. that is coming in, and the knight goes in, does not do the charge thing, which actually makes it be impaled upon the spear. It's just hitting, and it killed the first spearman. Keep in mind, that's just a Dark Age spearman, so a feudal knight can easily kill it. I say that. He does get the kill. He's low, and he's going to need chivalry upgrade. And we now see Leenock's vision as he's going to have to try and keep that knight alive. He got 1 kill on the spearman, a little bit of villager idle time in the TC, and it all stacks up. He's going to try to do as much as he can to disrupt the economy of Viper, and so far he's done an all right job of it.
Yeah, he's done a great job so far. The big thing for me is really forcing the outpost up on that stone mine. That's 100 wood that Viper didn't need to spend, but that Leenock has forced out of him. That's a really big factor. The other thing is obviously now we've got units coming out of the map, so it means that Viper's probably going to be looking to stay in feudal for a little bit. And as you mentioned earlier, it's about forcing out as many units from the Abbasid player as possible, whilst yourself going up to castle with as limited amount of units. But we do see that second town center being dropped now, just shy of 7 minutes, Grubby. How do you feel about this timing?
It's a very good timing. We see DeMusliM, who is a fantastic Abbasid Dynasty player. He often gets that second TC at 7:20, 7:40, 8 minutes. A little bit more pressure sometimes from his opponents. 6:50 is a very clean, lean timing. And you mentioned this point about forcing units out of the Abbasid Dynasty player. It's really hard to force units out of Viper, sometimes to his own detriment.
You are right. Well, one of the things that I've followed the Viper for a few years now, and one of the ways that I always witness him playing is he always seems to be right on the edge, you know, constantly forced up against the wall and just pushes back with as little as he can and tries to play as greedy as possible. And we see that in his play now, and you're 100% right in that it can be so hard to force those units out from him, but he has so far made a couple of spears. I don't know whether we see a stable coming down just yet, but I would expect that we would be seeing one shortly.
Not yet. And, you know, Leenock did his due diligence already of making a premeditated barracks. He's going for the 1-1-1 that we see often from players like Give You Anxiety, GUA. He's even using it already, just making one Dark Age Spearman, because the meta is for, as you said, for Viper and Abbasid to make a stable and a couple of horsemen. Horsemen to chase down low knights and to super kill any archers. But Viper, for some reason, somehow, some way, thinks that he can fix 3 to 4 unit production buildings of military with a single barracks of spearman. Oh wait, there we go. There's the stable with the horsemen.
Oh, okay, wonderful. All right, so he's got the stable out, but as you mentioned, Leenock is ahead of the curve. He knows exactly what's coming. He's done his research. He's watched a couple of GUA streams, like we all have, and has seen that 1-1-1 build order just being so strong. So I'm looking forward to seeing this because Leenock's probably playing this a little bit safer than he needs to, and I think that's the right decision because we can see that Viper, on the other hand, is not playing safe in that it took a while for him to get that stable out.
Viper made a big mistake. He didn't make a windmill on the berries.
Oh, yeah. You want that windmill on the berries. It's,
you already have the drop-off point of the town center, so why should you need it?
And now he's subsequently losing all of the food. Because keep in mind, the Abbasid dynasty, they get that bonus food coming in from the berries.
Yes.
Once they put that windmill down, you can see it right there.
It doubles the remaining berries potential output. And if there's 6-7 berry patches, that's 1,750 food.
This is a massive unforced error for Viper right here.
Massive unforced.
He's now going to be sitting behind. He's probably going to be, getting to the 10th, 11th minute. He's going to be out of berries. He's going to be thinking, where the heck's all my food? And then he's probably going to realize, and you know what? He might not even realize because you're just in the zone. You're in the moment. It won't be until he's watching the replay and he's wondering, where the heck's my mill? And
you know players are going to come up to him and clap him on the shoulder and be like, mills, mate.
You need to make him. But speaking of needing to make him, he's going to need to make an apology because he just lost quite a few villagers to those knights. So having to send a few letters away to family members right there as those villagers go down. It looks like 2 going down. And still at the same time, we're seeing a pretty decent force moving up here for Leenock. I'm wondering if he's going to be throwing down a blacksmith. We do see, in fact, he does have a blacksmith. You can tell by the +1. And now he's also looking to get +1 in. Siege engineering is already in. So I wouldn't be surprised if we've got a battering ram coming in very shortly for Leenock. He's got 400 wood in the bank. I can smell it, Grubby.
Interesting melee armor upgrade prioritization by Leenock. It's going to help into Spearman, but Spearman do like 27 damage into Knight, so 1 damage prevention doesn't seem that important. It's also nice into Horsemen, but again, Horsemen do like, what, 18 damage into Archers. So again, not a large percentage drop. Ranged Armor would have been better as it protects you from the town center. You're going to spend some time under the TC when you're going ram all in. So I think it's a misprioritization by Leenock, but it's really a small thing comparatively to the grand scheme of things. Viper does have 1 or 2 villagers more, but his army quality is worse. Leenock has that 1-1-1, which is a little bit harder to micro, and most players don't like to do it because of that. But it is so much more useful to have those units. It makes Horsemen much less effective. Viper's up against it once again, Drongo.
Yeah, this is a really difficult spot here for Viper. I'm wondering how he manages to get ahead, and we saw that he ran out of those berries that were behind his base as well. Had to move out towards the north of the map. We see those knights hovering as well up towards the north, going around the outside of that forest. Here they come now. They smell villagers. They know that those villagers are out there, and we see the spears moving out here for Viper as well. He's got to be careful. The knights have got a scout with them, but we continue to see this battering ram just wreaking havoc in Viper's base.
Yeah, he just killed the barracks. How much unit production does the Viper have left? I wonder. We know he has that one stable.
He's got a stable and an archery range. He's not looking good. This could be 2-0 for Viper.
Yeah, for Leenock, right? Like 0-2 for Viper.
Yes.
Leenock, I mean, this is good news for Leenock, right? Like, he's going to be 2-2 if he wins this series, and he'll have all the chances to advance the top 6, guarantee himself an increase of prize money. Every player has 5k, and if you go to top 6, you've got 7.5. So this match is worth probably about $2,500 for Leenock. He's leading with 1-0. Looking good here. He's moving in, Drongo.
Yeah, there's a huge amount of units coming in here. A second battering ram's been made, and just so many units right now from Leenock. If you take a look at the military population at the top of your screens, you see 41 military pop for Leenock compared to the 22 of Viper. And that's not even including the battering rams that are just hammering down these buildings. Leenock's looking in prime position right now.
And for Viper, this tournament could be kind of a wake-up call of how many good players from different games came over and have striven to excel and improve their build orders and their efficiency in regards to many things. This is the kind of game where you need to practice non-stop in order to compete effectively. And Leenock, he's got this wonderful big army. He knows that Viper is prone to under-making army, that he's greedy. In the early days of Age of Empires 4, Viper got away with that, making few units, relying on his reputation. But people are starting not to take his reputation as a top Age player in a way anymore that they are afraid to attack. We see zero fear from Leenock here. He's going in hard. He knows what he wants to target with those rams, and he's taking down the houses.
It's so smart as well, the way that he's coming around the base. Typically, you'd see a lesser player just look to come in from a one-dimensional angle.
Yes.
Yet Leenock has really come around the entire base, just taking out units as he does it, forcing Viper to continue making that infrastructure. And now it looks like we might have a bit of a fight on our hands. Villagers also being pulled in this situation. You can see the horsemen leading away the spears, as well as the knights over towards the left of your screen. A beautiful camera rotation coming in here from our observer as we see that second town center going to be going down for Viper. He's sieging away at those battering rams. The first one is down, the second one looking to go down as well, and it looks like all the rams have gone down, but a huge mass of archers continue to stand very proudly upon the territory that was once owned by the Viper.
Through the wreckage of the town centers, the villagers scramble away in fear as the red army of Leenock here is laying down the punishment. Viper's base is in shambles. His lumber count has been decimated. He's making his final 2 archers for a while, and it is up to them to save the homeland. 8 army supply into 38 from Leenock.
It's not looking pretty right now, Grubby. It's really not looking pretty. If you're a Viper fan, I mean, this is pretty much your last ditch effort, hope right here. He's going to potentially be 0-2 up against Leenock. It will mean that we'll head into that third game, and he's got to win that game. So often we see Viper throughout these tournaments has a little bit of a Cinderella story, comes in not the strongest performance, and then manages over the course of the tournament to start working his way up. If there's ever been a time that Viper needs to pull, it is right now.
And we're Viper fans, both of us. We love watching his games and to see him do well, but this is a competition where the better performance wins and deserves to win, and Leenock is the better competitor right now. For him, a short day of practice is 10 hours in a day, and he's been working hard, and he got it done. He qualified in the second qualifier, and he's about to be 2-0. He's looking to have a 2-2 match score. He's looking to put the final dots on the I's, crossing his T's, going in with the Rams, the Spears, the Archers, the Knights. Viper's coming up short, and Leenock is dominating.
And he realizes he's ahead. Take a look at right now at the heart rate for Leenock. He's sitting up at 140. We're going to have to send in a medical professional to make sure that he's okay after this game.
He was at 150 just now.
He's an absolute beast. I don't know how he does it, but still, he's so far ahead. Viper taps out 2-0 to Leenock, and it turns out it's not just the mirror match he's having trouble with. Also seems to be the opposite matchup as well.
That excuse is vanishing like snow before the sun, unfortunately, for Viper here. Yeah, not just the mirror matchups. And I really think this is going to be a make or break for Viper in his career of Age of Empires 4, for his mentality, where either he takes this as a wake-up call and realizes, and you know he gets challenged, and he would. Like, he's a champion, right? He's a multi-times champion. A wake-up call to get back in there and practice. A tough one, a sting to his pride, no doubt. But then to come back, we know he's got the speed. We know he has the intelligence. Now he needs to show the work ethic and the improvement as well. And he has practiced a lot for this event, but he's also been kind of struck between two different games, Age of Empires 2, Age of Empires 4. Leenock has been fully committed. It would certainly be a blow to a lot of the players' pride here to practice non-stop 24/7 and then run into a Viper who's extremely talented, but has, you know, kind of had this split attention, and for them to lose against him, they're mercilessly striking him down. Viper fans, like you and I and many in chat, of course, it is disappointing, but we hope that either in this map, or the rest of the match, or the next match, or the next tournament, we can see him rise back to former glory.
Well, if there's ever been a time to see that, it is right now, because the Cinderella story, I mean, this is the lowest of the lows. This is it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's down 2-0 in the set, and we often talk about this Cinderella story, the fact that he's able to come back from these lows. Now is the lowest. You got to do it right now, Viper. We need you to lift. So heading into this third game, he's got one map remaining from his picks. So it's going to be King of the Hill. And, I mean, what's his options?
It's tough. We don't know where he's at mentally, and, you know, at the top level of a game or a sport, the game is half mental.
Yep.
With the double meaning that implies. It gets kind of crazy, but also half of it is your mentality, right? And we don't know really where he's at now. Is he at a point where he can let go of that pressure and says, okay, I've lost time out, and then starts to play with a kind of reckless abandon, a kind of lack of worry? Or has he been broken and brought to his knees, lost his confidence, and plays an even worse match in the next game? We don't know that. But skipping over his mentality for a bit and just looking at playing style, if he was able to have the presence of mind to see where he's at, how he's gotten there, and what he's losing on, here's a little bit what it would look like. He has been splitting himself between various, let's say, various interests in the game, various hobbies. He does some relic collection, does some sacred site capture, makes a couple of units, stands there, bides his time, gets a feel for things. At this moment, in order to come back from this position, you need to have a plan and stick to it. Make it simple for yourself. There's so many emotions going around in yourself, and your instinct so far has not brought you to victory. So relying on a kind of, let's see how it goes kind of attitude may not be the best. Perhaps go with a Civ that has a clear linear path and focus on that. Or play something like French and say, I am going to rely on non-stop army production, and you just take Castle Age and you put it in an envelope, and you put the envelope deep in a drawer and say, we're not going to look at that. No Castle Age. You create these artificial rules to oversimplify the game for yourself, and you focus on that. You allow yourself to adapt if you get to a really good position and it's required, but kind of try to limit the scope of possibilities for yourself in order to double down on something. That's what I would recommend as his coach.
I think in this situation, he's gone for King of the Hill as one of his home maps.
Okay.
It's the only map that remains for him. If he makes it here, he's obviously going to be back in the series 2-1. Now, we do have the Civilization picks coming through, Grubby. It's going to be a mirror of the last match. So we're going to have Viper on the French this time. It's going to be Leenock on the Abbasid. And I got to say, I kind of like that position for Viper. Obviously, in the last game, we saw French victorious over the Abbasid, but King of the Hill throws a different dynamic in there.
Yes.
In that there's obviously just that one sacred site. And if there's a civilization that is very good at holding on to sacred sites, it's the French. They are a civilization that has the guild hall with plenty of stone that they can pull out of that. And most importantly, that red palace. So we could potentially see a fast Imperial out of the Viper, but it looks like players are now heading into the game. Ladies and gentlemen, game number 3 of N4C is about to start any second. Let me see your Viper pogs in the chat. Let me see all those things if you're a fan of Viper. Let me see some Keck W's if you're a fan of Leenock. Let me see some LOL W's because, ladies and gentlemen, this is it. Game number 3 of the second set of day 4. There's a lot of numbers in there. But what's important is that we have got TheViper, who is spawning in as the French in the color blue. He's playing on the right-hand side of the map, opening up with a double scout. And his opponent, Leenock, hailing from Korea, playing as the Abbasid dynasty in the color red. And, I mean, this is a great matchup, Grubby. We saw it a little bit earlier. I'm sure if you came to all of the pros here and you sat them down, you said, which civilization wins in this matchup? Half would say French, half would say Abbasid. Probably all of them would say, well, it kind of depends on the map. But I feel like on this map, you've got to say the French.
I think so, and that kind of those conditions and those thoughts lead to a confluence that actually could devastate Viper even more mentally, because he's lost the mirror excuse and now he's playing it from two sides. And if Leenock wins this, he can't even blame the matchup.
You got to blame woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
And by the way, we are spinning that narrative. Viper actually, he doesn't really make excuses for his losses.
Definitely not. No, he's been very, very humble throughout the day. And
in general, like when you watch his stream, he's got great sportsmanship. He always gives credit where credit is due. He's not that kind of guy. It's more maybe his fans that love him so much would have excuses like that, like, oh, he didn't practice for it or whatever. At the end of the day, he doesn't really do that. He's a great sportsman, a great example. But yeah, he does get to face a matchup that he just lost from the other side. Can he replicate what Leenock did? Does he have a different strategy? And will there be a sacred side focus? Positionally, with Viper being in the blue, Leenock being in the red, I'll say that the sacred side is slightly better positioned for Leenock, since the position blockers are oriented towards Viper's side, so he won't be able to build so well in this chasm.
That's true, but it's also important to note that it doesn't appear quite open, the entrance towards that sacred site for Leenock.
True.
Leenock is typically going to want to be playing 2 or even 3 town centers in this situation because it is quite a defensive map. He's going to need to break through towards that sacred site eventually, but if Viper is preventing him by using stone walls, it could be very disastrous for him because there's not a lot of ways into that sacred site from Leenock's perspective. It's definitely closer as the bird flies. But unfortunately, as the bird walks, it's going to take a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's a lot of circular hippity hops around that little chasm there. And of course, there are no birds in the game at all. So
that's a good point. That is a good point. But
it's a terrible point. But
we've now got Viper, who is going up to that second age. We can see Leenock's already hit it, going up with that economic wing. But Viper actually looking to add in a stone mine.
Yeah, Viper going for that stone mining camp as French.
Wait, did you just see that scout flip off the horse?
Yeah.
He did a little bit of a backflip.
He thought he was in a helicopter. The helicopter was downing, and he pressed the eject button, and he flew off, and he got actually stabbed by a villager midair.
I'm going to need to clarify something with you, Grubby. Do your helicopters have eject buttons? Because I feel like that's a recipe for disaster.
Okay, more like, let's say a trapdoor.
Okay, all right.
In the Netherlands, yes, but yeah. It was a wasted investment.
Yes. I suspect it would have been. But a beautiful trap there from Viper. Also going to be adding in a second...
How do you know so much about helicopters?
That's it. All right, I'll be honest with you. I'm a little bit of a fan.
Of helicopters?
Of TheViper. Oh. But taking a look at Leenock's base, we can see he's already got a spear coming out, anticipating that early night coming out. Fresh foodstuffs on the way as well for him. Do note that Leenock is not collecting any stone at this point in time, whereas Viper, on the other side, is collecting stone. So Leenock looking to play a one-base strategy. What is going on here?
What?
It's like opposite day, Grubby.
It's opposite day.
You've got that in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah, of course. It's called Australia.
Okay, all right.
This is bizarre. They're both role-playing as the other civilization. We just enunciated how Abbasi does not get to be single base aggressive into French. Maybe we can get a look of the vision. I know there's a little bit of a focal 4 bug, but this is the vision of Leenock, and you can't see the base because, of course, it disappeared. But one imagines that he saw what's going on.
He's seen the stone mine,
yeah.
yes.
So
he knows that there's a second town center coming up here. And let's take a look at his reaction, because we continue to see that he has got 0 on stone. He's obviously dropped down that mining camp, but it's a bit of a delay. Look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got ourselves a bit of a villager migration. But speaking of migration, they all jump in the town center. Going to be migrating some arrows towards that knight, and now heading down towards that stone mine. So he's looking to get up a second town center. And judging by the amount of villagers that were going towards stone, I really wouldn't be surprised if we saw a third one.
yeah. Leenock is trying to catch up, right? With wait, Viper? Viper wants another one? No, right? Leenock eventually wants another TC.
Yeah, Leenock would probably be going for a third town center here. Viper probably not.
That's a lot. Yeah,
he's got a huge amount of villagers here on stone, so it looks like double digits, actually.
Yeah, he's trying to catch up because, there we go, 13 villagers. He's trying to catch up because he's behind on the French town center. It's interesting. But just remember, the game time now is 7:15. The Viper threw down his expansion last game at 6 and a bit.
Yeah, 650, I think.
6:15 or 6:50?
6:50.
Yeah, okay. So this is a much, much slower expansion for Leenock than Viper did last game. In this case, again, it's Viper with that early second TC. The problem is, because French doesn't have fresh foodstuffs, they actually... Nice kill there. Nice pickup by Leenock.
Yeah.
No fresh foodstuffs. Villagers cost 50. And a double fast TC for French is going to cost a lot of food. He does have a fortunate deer position all the way at the east side of the map. That's going to help him really pay for that while still making some relevant army. But Abbasi Dynasty generally can make better use of a second TC because they can still make army during it, which is why we've seen them risen to the highest win rate of the tournament so far. TC, still make an army, leads to a pretty good recipe. And we can see Viper also going for some quick farms to kind of try to stitch those ends together. Just 3 farms.
Yeah, not a huge amount just yet, but I think this is a pretty smart move from Viper, and so far I'd probably say he's in a little bit of a lead, just primarily because it wasn't Leenock's intention to go for a second town center, at least initially. You can tell by the amount of villagers that he moved over to stone. He knew he needed to get that bad boy up as quickly as possible, and you want to avoid moving your villagers around too much, because every second that you're walking is a second that you're not collecting resources.
Correct. And he put 13 villagers there, made a TC, and then did indeed leave to go somewhere else. It looks like Leenock is setting up for a castle age timing. And judging on his income per minute right now, he could probably click up roughly at the 10-minute mark, perhaps the 10-minute and 15 mark, which is pretty solid considering he had a defense against Knights. He chased down and killed a couple. He kind of pressured Viper space, and he has his own second TC. Not too bad. Game is still pretty open, and both are playing quite well. No major mistakes yet.
Yeah, no major mistakes just yet. Viper obviously losing that mining camp, but we've got ourselves a battering ram now coming down, Grubby. What is this all about?
That's interesting. Viper also has the broad axis. He's really kind of changing things up. He wasn't as economy focused in any of the previous games. Now the question is, can he finally make enough army to deal with the situation? He's gone for the correct building. A barracks can help against the horsemen that Leenock has. And a ram is coming. And what will Leenock's prioritization be?
I think it's just going to be a reaction from Viper. He's not looking to particularly kill anything. He's not looking to do any damage. He just wants Viper to be invested in units that he doesn't need to make. Well, he obviously needs to make it because there's a ram out. But he's going to be able to do quite a bit of damage just by being there and existing. I think it's actually a very smart move from Leenock because we can see behind this, he's on the way up to castle. Yeah. He's barely 100 food away from it. And now I'm starting to wonder, I don't think there's any way... Oh, gosh, I've said this before, but Viper's not looking in a good position now. Typically, what you would see out of the French is just the one TC play into that sort of fast castle with just a couple knights out, look to try and take control of the center, whether you get a keep up on that. But we haven't seen that from Viper, and he doesn't really look like he's that close to aging up.
No, not at all.
Villager's going to try and take down that battering ram, and you can see he's buying so much time here. Think about, every second that a villager has stood out here in the open trying to kill this battering ram, they could be gathering resources. So a beautiful trade there for Leenock. I'd be curious to know which way it goes, but now he's got to be careful not to trap these villagers. You can see Viper doing a little bit of the cute heal and jump, but unfortunately it looks like that outpost is going to stay alive, and Viper's going to be pretty happy with the result.
13 idle villagers, not just the ones that we actively saw on the camera, but there was also 5 villagers that all throughout that never did anything as they finished triple barracks. Viper now also got housed. This is the genius of Leenock's play. Generally, Rams are a mascot of going all in. They symbolize someone that is not going for Castle Age. Leenock made a singular Ram. Doesn't look as scary as 2 or 3. It didn't have the threat and menace of a kill move, but it was responded to as if it was a kill move. It created 13 to 18 idle villagers for a period of almost a minute, even as Leenock is about to reach Castle Age. It's genius, and it worked.
So what is Viper up to? I'd love to take a look at his perspective and just get an idea of what's going on for him. Because we see that second town center is down. He's obviously got the School of Cavalry, but there's no landmark that is coming up for him. It looks like he's content sitting just in the feudal age here, not really appreciating the fact that Leenock is about to be up in the third age any second right now.
And we look at the left side of the map, still on Viper's vision. He's got a scout on the hill. He now sees the Castle Age call out. He has vision, kind of. He's not actively controlling the scouts and popping in for a bit of an extra look, but generally he could have had a good idea of what's happening. I'm not sure he had direct vision of the House of Wisdom, but you can actually, if you teach yourself to recognize the patterns on the House of Wisdom, it can tell you how far along someone's Castle Age is, as there is a sequential build-up of the animation of a new wing being built and researched in the House of Wisdom. It's only now that the Viper is aging up himself with, we don't know how many villagers, but he's popping down that landmark, even as Leenock is kind of starting to wall things off. Now, as much as Leenock did a great job, it's still going to have to come down to him using his Castle Age to deal actual damage for him to feel like he's in a definitive good spot. The guild hall is being rushed out, and Viper does still have more villagers. We look at the income, and Viper's getting 1,200, 1,700 resources, 1,800 resources per minute. Leenock is getting about 1,600, 2,000, a little bit more. Probably courtesy to Leenock's Golden Age upgrade, or maybe the efficiency of what he is currently gathering. So despite Viper's villager lead, he's gaining just a little bit less. It is relatively even. Everything now comes down to the military effort from both players.
Yeah, and we can see now that Viper going to be putting some Arbaletria in queue here. I think this is a wise move. Also moving out onto the map, going to be looking to secure up that boar down towards that south position. So opens himself up, but this is really where the death push comes. So if we take a look from Leenock's perspective, you're going to see so many units coming out. He's got spears, he's got the veteran spear upgrade coming through, men-at-arms out as well, and keep in mind he's playing as the Abbasid. There is absolutely no counter to what Viper is about to experience. It's almost impossible to deal with other than just a miracle happening, a misplay happening. If Leenock plays this the way it should be, I can't see any way Viper holds.
Spamming mangoes and sprinkles?
Correct. It's the siege push that's coming. So he's going to be looking for men-at-arms. He's going to be looking for spears. Probably going to be getting those +2 upgrades as well. And you can see all the infantry that's coming out of those barracks right now. And actually going to be dropping down a siege workshop here. So could potentially be looking at getting an upgrade in as well. Because keep in mind, he can build that siege out on the field.
Yeah, probably wants to get that movement speed, the Greased Axles, the 350 resource, or maybe 450 resource upgrade that gives you that movement speed for siege quite nice. He's also getting another mining camp on stone. So Leenock is thinking a few minutes into the future. He's also got villagers gathered rally pointed on stone, so he's thinking about making a keep for sure. Starting to control that middle point. He's got his monastery ready, or the equivalent of what it's called, mosque for Abbasid dynasty, starting to wall up more and more. And what he wants is to have his flanks completely secured, take the middle with a keep, with a relic. That's his win condition.
Yeah, whereas Viper, it was imperative that he got up to the next stage as quickly as possible, try and utilize that, try and gain control of the middle, because when it comes to this map, there's only one sacred site, and we can see that it's now ticking. 9 minutes and 45 seconds until a victory for Leenock is happening. So Viper's going to be very aware of this and knows that he needs to push towards that middle. Whether Leenock looks to potentially push on Viper, he doesn't even have to, because he is sitting in the driver's seat right now.
He definitely is. And as we go back to the double view, we can see that side is taken and stone is ticking in for both of them. Viper's also thinking about a keep. He can use it at home to boost the cheapness of his units, but his buildings are a little split and he's fairly barracks heavy, making Arbaletier and men-at-arms now. Or he can try to take the middle, but again, he doesn't have space to make the middle. Any space that Leenock had, he's already claimed. And so with an outpost there, with mangoes coming in, it slows down the game. If there's a unit that counters your composition, you need to wait and get your counter against it. So you need Springles or Horsemen. But Springles will come out very slowly. As for Horsemen, they get countered by Spears. So if Leenock masses more Spears, he will be in a good position. He is making men-at-arms and crossbows, also very, very solid into any men-at-arms that could be coming out.
Yeah, this is such a difficult position for Viper because he doesn't know how much siege is coming out. So obviously he knows that his enemy can make siege in this position, but he doesn't know how much there is. And so he needs to be constantly scouting his enemies, constantly checking how many mangonels are coming out, how many springalds are coming out, and then needs to make the decision as to whether he commits to a large springald mass. And we can see that he is rolling out those springalds already with 2 springalds, now dropping down an outpost as well, looking for that line of sight. But we do see greased axles now coming through for Leenock, so looking to get that nice little speed upgrade for his siege.
And both have enough for a keep, pretty much. I would recommend any player not to delay that. I have yet to see a keep position on King of the Hill with the Sacred Site fail. I have not seen the middle be lost yet by the king.
Yep, it's very difficult to take the keep from the middle because typically, well, now we see the keep coming down. For Viper to deny this, he's going to have to invest resources in his trebuchets, and every single resource that he's investing in trebuchets, whether he goes for 1, 2, or even 3, those are resources that Leenock is subsequently investing in mangonels or springalds or men-at-arms. So it definitely gives a huge advantage to the defender to have that keep up, because you must deny that keep before you push into the site, because it just absolutely destroys units.
Exactly. The one thing really working for Viper is his amazing food income. 1,400 per minute, courtesy of that boar that he has been gathering undetected by Leenock at the south side of the map. That's been a lot of nice extra food. And he invested early in springalds as well. In farms. As the scout sees that the keep is being made, Viper has decided to make his own keep relatively close as a fallback point. Won't really be affecting the site too much. I wonder if he could have tried to make it in the gap. There is enough space just about, and maybe even build it more forwards, but then mangonels could also take down his villagers.
It's such a difficult position. Are we able to take a look from the sacred site and see if there's any other way that Viper could potentially weasel his way onto it? Yeah, down towards this position doesn't seem too terrible, Grubby.
Yeah.
It seems it's a little bit more open and enables him to come through, but at the same time a little bit further could potentially have reinforcements picked off, and then it's obviously up towards this north position as well. So it is a bit tough, but now it looks like Viper might be doing a bit of a base trade.
VortiX tried this against Beastyqt. Beastyqt tried this against someone, against DeMusliM.
Twice.
Never worked.
Well, actually, it worked twice in a row for Beastyqt.
Well, the MiSTA, right?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. Yes,
but I'm thinking of the King of the Hill moment in particular. All the King of the Hill moments we've had where the player tries to, with 6 minutes left on the clock for the Sacred Site timer, go for the landmarks, go for the main. It hasn't worked. And Viper just lost a couple of mangonels for free under the keep that Leenock sniped away with his springalds. It doesn't matter how much eco damage you do at this moment. Even if he killed 40 villagers of Leenock, it matters not one whit.
Yeah.
Because the amount of income that they lose is the amount of villagers times mining time times however many minutes on the sacred site, and that just isn't that much.
It's a really difficult spot right now for Viper because he needs to deny this sacred site. Now, I'd be curious to see how many units are actually standing back towards this sacred site if Viper just goes and sends just a handful of men-at-arms, whether he'd be able to actually take that sacred site off his enemy. There's not a lot of units back there, but now heading in towards the base of the Viper, Leenock brings a huge army, crossbows, spears, as well as those men-at-arms, going to be looking to take down the primary, that capital town center of the Viper. Actually moving past it and then heading towards the secondary town center, realizing that he doesn't need to go for a victory here. He just needs to annoy Viper, delay him, and now we see those trebuchets coming out. Both players looking to start trepping down their enemies' castles, and Viper going to be losing a town center here, Grubby.
Yep, he loses the second TC. It doesn't really matter that much. The big problem for him is he doesn't have a lot of gold. He just researched Military Academy. Ooh. Oh, nice rock. Can we follow all of them in that arc? That was sick.
That was really cool, wasn't it? It was very close to the camera.
Viper has 50% less army supply, so even if he kills the keep, he's gonna have to walk onto that point within the next 4 minutes, hold it, take it, and then not be dead.
that's the tricky part, not be dead. But now Viper does manage to bring that army back. You can see he's actually looking to a pretty good cleanup now. This is great for Viper because keep in mind, all that siege that Leenock has created, it's gone. So Viper gets to take out the infantry without the siege. And now we see that siege moving back towards the center, so it still does exist. This is a beautiful trade here for Viper because the infantry are able to make those siege units for the Abbasid dynasty, and that's what makes them so damn strong.
He kills a lot of units, but there's 4 minutes left. 1 minute away from the church bells and the gong sounding. What's happening in the center there? There were Springles and Trebuchets. Springles are now shooting other Springles. The keep hasn't fallen yet. It's a Springled war.
Looks like the Springles from Viper are going to go down. This is the classic Abbasid victory right here. They've just got so much siege coming through. And Viper managing to heal up those Trebuchets, keeping them alive. You can see him actually doing his best to keep them alive. Villagers looking to move forward, and he's got to be careful. He actually loses 3 of those 4 Springles. Only 1 does remain, and that is just how good those castles are.
3 minutes and 30 left. Leenock still has stragglers inside the base of Viper. He's got a second keep out as well, protected by mangonels. Making farm still at this point for Viper feels like planning for the next game, which there isn't. This is no best of 7 either. At this point, well, I think Leenock is doing a great job of distracting Viper, worrying about little meaningless wars in his own base as the sacred site sounds the gong. 3 minutes left.
3 minutes to go until that sacred site victory is going to be happening for Leenock, and Viper really needs to push in. The first keep does go down, so there is progress here in the center, but obviously these mangonels are going to be able to stay safely underneath this keep. He's got to be so careful, and actually dropping down 2 siege workshops in the middle of the map, so looking to even things up with the other civs. That's 3 siege workshops coming out for the Abbasid dynasty, a civ that doesn't even need to make siege workshops.
Yeah, just easier in terms of micro, right?
Yeah.
If you've got no infantry there. They also build quite slow, and you constantly need to like shift click and do extra hotkeys. So Leenock has those siege workshops there, 2 reinforced with more siege. There's 2 minutes and 20 left. 169 supply by the Viper against 177 from Leenock. There are many Springles here. They're moving forward to try and take down those Trebuchets. Those Trebuchets cannot fall for the Viper.
This is the time right now for Viper to lift. If there has ever been a time, it is right now. He's down 0-3 in the tournament. If he loses this game, which is currently 0-2 in this series, he's going to go to 0-3, and that means he will be 0-4 and completely out of the tournament. If there has ever been a time for Viper to lift, it is right now. It is down to the wire. There is less than 2 minutes to go until this sacred site victory sounds, and Viper begins to apply pressure towards that sacred site, dropping down a huge keep right outside his position on that sacred site, moving in towards the mangonels. Actually took out a huge amount. He's going to be able to force those back, and we can see the Springles trying to defend those mangonels, but it looks like that keep is going down. The Trebuchet is doing a huge amount of damage. Viper is lifting right now. He's got a huge economy behind this, and he is funneling in units. He knows he needs to stay on this sacred site. He needs to stop these units. Oh my lord, is he going to do it, Grubby?
15 villagers, 15 units inside the keep are shooting away. The Trebuchet is taking down the keep. Allez le bleu, says the Viper as he pushes his French towards the sacred site. It is currently not being paused because whoever steps on the site first has an advantage in the way that interaction works. So it's still ticking down. 1 minute and 30. Leenock's army scrambled to the defense of this sacred site. He's moving forward. He still has Springles and Mangonels. The crossbows are shooting something fierce. Viper, he gives up. It's GG.
Viper's out. He has unfortunately been knocked out of the tournament. He sits at 0-4 in this group stage. It's an unfortunate day, but it was very well played by Leenock.
Thus passes the Viper, son of Icthelion. Yeah, the Viper, he goes down. Lord of the Ring reference.
I'm like, that's not his dad.
No, it's the guy that jumped off a cliff while burning.
I see.
It seemed like a fitting metaphor, if a bit sad and morbid. But the Viper, he is actually 0-4 and eliminated. The glory here towards Leenock, who goes in with a 1-2 score, wins this series 3-0 against the Viper, is now sitting at 2-2, will have one more match, and is in a pretty darn good position to go top 6 and advance to the bracket phase.
That's really what players are looking for at this stage. It's why it was so important for Viper to be winning here, looking to get towards that bracket stage. Keep in mind, as we move towards the edge or the end of this Swiss stage, 2 players will be knocked out completely. That'll be your 8th and 7th position. Unfortunately, Viper going to be falling into one of those spots. Leenock, however, still looks in contention and will be going pretty solidly into the final day tomorrow with a victory today. So he'll be happy with himself.
Great job by him, and we'll have him soon for an interview as we ask him a little bit about himself and this match. Let's summarize how he managed to defeat Viper. He had a Mongol mirror on Hillendale where he cleverly brought out that second TC, a number of eco upgrades as he pretended that it was a gridlock of under equal conditions, both snaking towards the middle, but he had that working behind himself, that second TC. Following the meta understanding as well, you mentioned it, some of the players here on the couches have talked about it, that Mongol typically makes a second town center only in Mongol Mirror. Leenock knew that, he used it, he had a meta understanding. I don't think Viper did. Point 1 to Leenock. Then winning Abbasid French from both sides of the coin.
It's really tough for Viper in that position, but Leenock did a great job, obviously, in that final game that we saw. It meant that Viper, his castle age was delayed. It meant that as a consequence, he wasn't able to get a keep up on that sacred site. And at the end of the day, he wasn't the one holding the sacred site. It was Leenock, and it was a very difficult position. But we've got Leenock ready on the casting couch for an interview, Grubby. Let's jump over.
Let's go. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the casting couch. I'm Aussie Drongo, and I'm here with Leenock and Grubby. Leenock, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've just knocked out the Viper from the tournament. He cannot play anymore. I mean, maybe tomorrow, but he can't go through. No. How are you feeling?
Sorry for Viper, but I also lose today. I did so, and I win. It's a little bit happy.
Do you go into a tournament just focusing on one game at a time, one game, then next game? Or do you also look at the rules and you think, like, for example, this morning, you're playing your match. Did you calculate, looking, if I lose, how much chance I have for still winning the tournament or advancing? If I lose, I'm out. Do you know those rules to that degree? Or do you just think, I just gonna try to win?
I didn't be thinking about it, but just I think no more lose. If you lose, just die. So I just focusing for win today.
Yeah. Just simplifying don't want to think about it too much and just focus on the victory. Yes. So when it comes to playing against the Viper, did you study the Viper style and try to think of counterplay? Or did you just practice, try to be strong, and make sure that your strong is good enough for win anyone?
Until last day, I think about other players' style, and I think it's my problem until yesterday. Just I think
too much thinking.
Yes. Just do my play is best to me, I think. So today, just do my play.
Focus on self.
Yes.
In the last game, you were playing as the Abbasid dynasty. You opened up and you're only making one town center. You saw that Viper was going for a second town center. Yeah. You moved a lot of villagers onto your stone. Were you thinking I should go for a third town center? What was your thinking behind this?
I also played the French and I can try the 2 town center. But if French do this, make villager and no money, only can make villager. So he go to second town center. So I just make it 1 golden tier, and little push after 2 TC is better to me. I thinking.
And then you made that
the ram.
Yeah, 1 ram.
Yes.
Even you going H3.
Yes, right.
So you're thinking his mental will be for defense and make some unit, and you can go castle faster and make like trick.
Yes, right.
Very smart.
Now, Leenock, I know that your girlfriend, she's going to be very happy with this situation.
Oh, really?
Yes, but I should also mention my girlfriend. She's a big fan of you because you're Korean. She loves Korean. So she asked me to do this. So shout out to her. Leenock, fighting!
Thank you, everyone.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And good luck in the final stage as well, because you should be going through.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't want to more lose. And if I do my play, I can win more in this tournament. So I hope to win this tournament.
Good luck.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we throw it back to you guys. Enjoy some highlights, ladies and gentlemen. Grubby, I don't know about you, but I'm ready.